Remember one of the themes from the book, The Art of the Start, was meaning and make mantra, to come up with a quick, pithy way of explaining what you do. Sort of like a slogan, a catchphrase. A lot of companies have advertising slogans. So while we're waiting for more of us to gather, let's check and see how you're doing on some of these advertising pitches. All right, I'll tell you the theme, and you tell me what company used it, okay? Some of these may be your parents' generation, so if you don't know it, let me know. You're in good hands. Allstate, right. I can't believe I ate the whole thing. Acid indigestion. Alka-Seltzer. Okay. The greatest show on earth. Barnum and Bailey Circus. See, now that one's from 200 years ago or 150 years ago, and you still know it, huh? Here's one from the 50s. A little dabble do ya. Anyone know that one? Brill cream. It was, you put it in your hair to style your hair. Here's one I heard last night. The ultimate driving machine. Wow, they're not doing so well on their ads if you aren't getting that. All college graduates should get one of these. The ultimate driving machine. BMW. Okay. Have it your way. That is the Burger King, but you thought the exact opposite. No more tears. What your mom used when you were a little baby. No more tears. Johnson & Johnson what? Baby shampoo. Keeps going and going and going. Energizer. No one said the other one, huh? Yeah, that's what happens a lot. People think it's Duracell. They get the two mixed up, just like Burger King and McDonald's. Bet you can't just eat one. Lay's. Okay. When it rains, it pours. That's Morton Salt. Melts in your mouth, not in your hand. What? M&M's. I don't want to grow up. Toys R Us. Strong enough for a man, but made for you. Secret deodorant. Snap, crackle, pop. Yeah. The San Francisco treat. Rice-A-Roni. Be all that you can be. In the Army. Where's the beef? Wendy's. Head for the border. Mexico? Taco Bell. All right, here's one from my generation. It takes a licking, but it keeps on ticking. Timex. It's a watch. Timex. Yeah, it's a watch. Here's one, I don't know if they use this anymore, just slightly ahead of our time. Electronics company. Panasonic. Now, all right, here's this one. How about, it's the real thing? Coke. Now, can any of you name a Pepsi phrase? No. Isn't that interesting that Pepsi hasn't got one that is stuck in your mind, but Coke has had more memorable ones? Here are some of the old Pepsi ones. The choice of a new generation. Come alive, you're in the Pepsi generation. Taste that beats the others cold, Pepsi pours it on. Those are some they've used over the years. How about nothing says loving like something from the oven? Gooseberry. And who's their mascot? I didn't know we were going to get a little performance.
Oh, I didn't perform.
Okay. Now, here's one that struck me. Can you think of a mantra or a catchphrase that Apple uses?
Think different.
I mean, they're so successful, but
Think different.
do they use, is that what they use?
It was at one point. I don't know if they still do. Yeah, it's,
You're right. Think different. How about, and this one I don't remember, the power to be your best. I don't remember that one either. All right, I'm good. What?
Louisiana?
Campbell's soup. Campbell's soup. Okay. We bring good things to life. General Electric. When you care enough to send the very best. Who is it? Hallmark, yeah. Finger licking good. Okay. There are some things that money can't buy. For everything else, there's. No one said Visa. That's pretty good. Good. You deserve a break today. That was a McDonald's phrase. McDonald's. And let's see here. Because life is not a spectator sport. Reebok. Close, you're in the sports field. All right, what's Nike's catchphrase? Just do it. And can anyone remember 7-Up, what they tried? Maybe, I don't have that one. What the Uncola. And then I thought this was an interesting phrase, but it didn't stick. I don't remember this one. The difference is clear. And that's sort of catchy, but it didn't stick. You know, the difference is clear. I think that's a good description of their product. Obey your thirst. Sprite, yeah, good. Like a good neighbor, did we do that one?
State Farm.
Let's see. Oh, what a feeling. Remember the guy who was jumping at the end of the ad? You're close. Toyota. Okay. And Breakfast of Champions. Now, just because they have this mantra, have any of you eaten Wheaties in the last week? Okay, one of you, you know. So just having a good catchphrase doesn't ensure that you're going to do it, but it helps. All right, last one. Some of our best men are women. Close. Close. It's the U.S. Army again. All right. So when you're coming up with the name of your venture, try to make it memorable. Try to come up with a catchphrase, a mantra that people will remember and link onto. And I would encourage you, don't use bad, tough spelling that people won't know how to pronounce. They will move on to the next business or the next person to call if they can't pronounce your name or your business name, because they don't want to be embarrassed to mispronounce it. So they'll call John Smith over some other name that they don't want to risk. You know, hi, may I speak to, and they don't know how to say the name, so they'll just avoid you. Okay?
So if you have a hard name to say, would you get a writer's name?
Maybe, especially for your business. Because otherwise, you know, does anyone else do that? Have you avoided doing something or calling something because you didn't know how to pronounce their name or the name of their business? No, huh? All of you brave. You're brave. What?
If you don't know someone's name, you're not going to talk.
Okay. All right, this young lady I was just talking to, raise your hand if you know her first name.
That young lady?
Yes, in the pink. Okay, so about 2/3 of you know her name. Okay. All right. All right. Before I forget, let's talk about the assignment for Tuesday. I've been impressed with how many different social entrepreneur organizations there are out there. In fact, I read in the United States there are 1.5 million nonprofits and other social ventures with combined revenue of $700 billion and control assets valued at $2 trillion. Okay, so your assignment for Tuesday is to research a social venture, go to their website, look at their materials, describe it in about 300 words, and analyze whether you think it'll be around in 5 years. Are these guys doing something that you think is sustainable, are they on the right track, that they'll be there in 5 years? Now you will get, if you do one that someone else writes about, you will get less points. So I encourage you to look for one that is not going to be written up by your fellow class members. There's 1.5 million out there, so look for one that's offbeat. Search around on the internet. There's lots of places to find them. So find one that is not going to be written up by one of your, do you know the word compatriot? Is that a word anyone knows? Okay. All right. I thought of this the other night. All right, here's a secret of how many of you will start your own venture. Here's the secret, okay? I'll forewarn you. You will start your own venture, many of you, because of a conflict over your compensation at the current employer you're with. You'll end up having a conflict with your boss about how much you're getting paid. The boss will renege on your compensation agreement. You'll feel that you aren't getting paid for all your contributions, and you will decide to leave, and that will be the impetus for you starting your own organization. Okay? I've found that is one of the main ways new ventures get started. And so it's almost by default. It's not like you planned on starting it, but you're frustrated at your current situation, so you decide to strike out on your own and start it up, and you be your own boss because you're tired of the shenanigans of your current boss. Right. I also ran across this thought from a fellow's name is Rick Box. He runs the Integrity Resources Center. He's a good Christian. He said this: "The Holy Spirit communicated a powerful message to me in the shower recently. My wife had installed a new shower head. Although the previous one worked, just not real well, I accepted it as my reality. When the pounding water from the new nozzle hit me, I realized my view had been limited. I only knew what was rather than seeing what might be." So that happens a lot in the world, especially how many of you missionaries, as you were trying to explain the fullness of the gospel to the people you met on your mission, they would just have a little tiny showerhead experience, and that's all they knew. And you had this full blast fire hydrant ready for them if they wanted it, and they said, "No, I'm satisfied with this little pea shooter stream in my life." And they couldn't see how wonderful all that you had. So just like this guy, he was happy with his old little shower head. He knew maybe there was something better, but he had never taken the time to get a better shower head that gave him a full blast of water. All right, here's an example of social venture. You won't be able to use it now that I've presented it to you, but this one is called Health Point Services Global. Health Point Services Global. They announced last month an innovative learning partnership with the Procter & Gamble Company, aimed at advancing a scalable, self-sustaining model for delivery of water, health care, and other benefits to underserved rural communities in developing countries. The Health Point model, created and piloted by Health Point Services, combines 4 essential services in each rural area. Safe drinking water produced on-site daily. 2, access to qualified doctors via telemedicine, supported by 2-way video and electronic medical records. 3, advanced on-site diagnostic capability, over 80 tests, enabling evidence-based health care. And 4, high-quality medicines via an online licensed pharmacy. So they're trying to get health care out in the rural areas. First, it looks like they're trying to do it by having healthy water and then having access to doctors via the internet or telephones. On-site diagnostic tests, so you can have 80 different tests that you can walk into your rural clinic and they can test for strep throat or some of those basic things. And then it looks like the 4th area is dispensing medicines via an on-site licensed pharmacy. Now, how big is Procter & Gamble? Huge. And here they are partnering with, basically this is a startup venture. So I found this really peculiar that a big, well-known company like Procter & Gamble would take a chance on their reputation by linking up with a tiny startup venture. So I thought that was pretty interesting. They go on to say, each modern Health Point facility, owned and operated by Health Point Ventures, provides an oasis of high-quality, affordable services for rural communities. In addition, the company deploys village health workers equipped with mobile phones that go door to door, providing consumer education, patient follow-up, and last-mile service delivery to extend the reach of the Health Point Village team. In this innovative learning partnership, Procter & Gamble FutureWorks, so Procter & Gamble has a subsidiary called FutureWorks, will work closely with Health Point Services, providing financial support, experienced people, and in-kind services. The objective of the collaboration will be to improve and strengthen the model to enable its growth and expansion into rural communities in India and other countries in need. Quote, it is leading-edge thinking for a company like P&G to ally with an early-stage venture like Health Point Services, said Health Point co-founder and CEO Al Hammond. We're excited to leverage the scale and capability of Procter & Gamble to help reach underserved consumers, working towards delivery of a market-based model capable of transforming rural health care. P&G's innovative learning partnership with Health Point Services is a great example of our company commitment to touch and improve the lives of more consumers in more parts of the world more completely, said Nathan Estruth, Vice President, Procter & Gamble FutureWorks. Procter & Gamble is excited to bring our people, expertise, and global capability to not only further our own understanding of consumers, but also to help Health Point Services learn how to delight the customers while creating a robust business model that is both scalable and sustainable, leveraging our global reach and strong history and innovation. And then at the very bottom, this is from a press release, and at the very bottom it describes in the last paragraph the description of the companies involved. And so they describe Health Point Services, based in the US, and its wholly owned Indian operating subsidiary, comprise a for-profit social enterprise. I thought that was interesting. They don't claim that they're going to be a nonprofit. They say they're a for-profit social enterprise. Okay, the company was founded by Dr. Al Hammond, Aman Jain, and Chris Dickey, and incubated by Ashoka, the world's largest network of social entrepreneurs, which remains an active partner. Okay, so there's another Ashoka helped situation. And notice again, teaming with a big company and not nonprofit. So those are a couple things that struck me as being different about that one. So that's the kind of thing I want you to put in your assignment is look at what they're doing and see what makes it different. See what makes it a little out of the ordinary, why these guys might do okay. We'll save that one. All right, here's another interesting story. In the summer, a fellow churchgoer mentioned to Elisha Renshaw that he needed help managing his parking garage near Baltimore's Penn Railroad Station. That's one of the big commuting stations. Unlike the West Coast, East Coast cities use a lot of railroad trains for commuting. So you may not be familiar, but they are more important on the East Coast. Yes?
Just a quick comment on the last story. One of the reasons that Procter & Gamble may have invested so heavily in that small business is because a lot of the technologies that you read off that they are introducing are like the way they're doing is stuff that we in the U.S. have not yet done, and a matter of fact have taken some steps to prevent doing, although it's inevitable that eventually we will do it, and so it may just be that one of the reasons I could see them doing that is because they're supporting a company that's going to experiment with the business that then 30, 40 years from now when the U.S. finally wakes up, they can apply here very easily. And they would just be like, oh, look, we have this system already ready for you. And they can be the ones who offer that.
Mm-hmm. How many of you are familiar with teleradiology? You know, right now, it used to be if you broke your arm and you went in the hospital, you had to have a radiologist on site at the hospital to hold up the x-rays on a light box and look at your bones to see if they were broken. Okay? Now, when you take digital x-rays, you can send those x-rays anywhere in the world over the internet and have a radiologist anywhere in the world look at those x-rays and see if you have a broken bone. They don't have to be on site in the facility where you're having the actual x-ray. So that's a great example of leveraging, and you have just big offices now where the radiologists go and they don't ever go in a hospital anymore. They're just sitting at a big computer screen looking at the digital x-rays from everywhere. So that's a great way of reducing healthcare costs. So, and you can do the same thing with a video conference with doctors, right? They don't have to be in every little village. They can have a video hookup and have a nurse or someone else there to administer some things, but the actual doctors don't need to be on site all the time anymore. So getting back to this idea, this lady, someone at her church said, I need help managing my parking garage near the railroad station. It sounded like an interesting challenge to her. She had just a high school diploma and no special qualifications. She offered to work free for 3 months. So I guess she was sort of desperate. The man accepted. At first it didn't look promising. The garage was in a crime-ridden neighborhood, and Lisa didn't know how to drive cars with a standard manual shift. A coworker had to show her how to park sports cars, but she hung on. As her apprenticeship grew to a close, Renshaw was approached by her boss with a job offer and a problem. The garage was behind on its bills. Could she lend them $3,000 to pay off some debts? Renshaw borrowed the money at 21% interest and turned the check over to her employer. The next morning, he was gone, never to be seen again. In every sense, he had given her the business. Now what am I going to do, she thought. To survive financially, 21-year-old Renshaw let all the employees go but one and negotiated a new lease. Even though her garage was a block further from the train station than most others, Renshaw gambled on attracting commuters. Unlike her competitors, she conceived of parking as a service business. Provide better service, she reasoned, and customers will come. Is that my phone? Yeah, someone really wants me, huh? Did I win the lottery?
Let's hope you're not gambling.
I'll have to turn it to alarm only. All sounds off. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. But you thought it was you there, huh? Wasn't it? You had to check yours too?
I was like, it's not shaking.
So she renamed the company Penn Parking and distributed newsletters to commuters promoting Penn Perks, a free car wash to customers who parked for 5 consecutive days, plus services that included changing flat tires and charging dead batteries for free. To keep the garage open from 5:30 a.m. until 1 a.m., Renshaw moved into the dingy parking office. She slept on the carpet at night, cooked on a hot plate, and kept warm in the winter with a kerosene heater. Once she tried to chase a group of suspicious acting youths out of her garage. One held a knife to her throat. In as calm a voice as she could muster, she said, "If you kill me and you're caught, you will spend the rest of your life in jail." After a long pause, he lowered his knife and walked away. For the first couple of years, Renshaw just got by. Commuters liked the service and didn't seem to mind the extra block walk. But her profits went into an escalating lease, higher insurance, a security system, more employees, and more promotions. Renshaw reached her breaking point one bitter cold night when she noticed that the coffee in her cup was frozen solid. Depressed, she debated with herself all night. But by morning, she had decided to stick with her dream. She bid on the lease of a second parking lot, then a third and a fourth. Today, she plans to expand her full-service parking concept throughout the Northeast. Her annual business, already over the $1 million mark, is expected to triple in the coming year. Her spunk and persistence won her the National Young Entrepreneur Award from the Small Business Administration. Renshaw's struggles were sometimes humbling, but always enlightening. I've washed cars, picked up trash, and bargained with powerful corporations, she says. I've discovered how much I can do for myself. So I like that story. You know, can you imagine your boss defrauds you and leaves you, takes your money? What are you going to do? I like it. She stuck with it and made it happen. All right. Where's your brother? This is the class for him today. So tell him he wanted this. I'd like to take a few minutes this morning and to compare ways of analyzing a nonprofit or a new venture with analyzing other investments that you might make in your life. Okay? I think there's a lot of similarities. If you're looking at, should I start this new business or should I invest in this idea that my friend has, or should I buy this stock? I think there are a lot of the same tools that you can use to analyze any of those. Okay? So I'd like to share some of the things that I've learned. I call them 8 guiding rules for stock detectives. Okay? Does anyone know why I call it stock detectives? Remember back that far?
Because you're a detective.
Yeah. I've always wanted to be a detective, and that's what I have done with a lot of my career. All right. Number 1, be alert and collect unique evidence. Be alert and collect unique evidence. You know, from your last assignment, 18, when you interviewed your entrepreneurs, you know, the thing I found probably the most common thread among what you said you learned from the entrepreneurs you interviewed was they said they observed other businesses. They looked at other businesses to see how they ran, to see what they could do in their business. So that isn't basically what you do with all your investments. You're always looking around, seeing, all right, why are they doing it that way? Why is McDonald's offering that? Well, why isn't Burger King offering that? Well, why is Jack in the Box doing this now? You know, you think, let's see, are they going to make any money on that promotion? You know, you always be thinking. Like I showed you the calendars last Tuesday, right, that I bought. Why would that store offer a calendar for under $1? I mean, what do you think their cost of goods are on a calendar like that? Probably, you know, somewhere around, 50 cents, maybe 70 cents. So they weren't making much selling them for $1. Why would the normal markup, what's a normal market at retail?
$6 is the
What?
$6 equivalent. I looked last night.
Okay. So Foodland probably buys it for under $1 and they mark it up $5. So that's what, a 400 or 500% markup? Okay. More typically, a standard markup might be double. You pay something $1 for it and you try to sell it at $2. You know, obviously it changes all over the board, but that's a general rule of thumb, is you try to do that. Well, again, what is it in the Kahuku Grill? What's the markup on your cost of goods on your food? If you,
it's double, pretty much on everything except for a few items.
well, I've heard it's almost triple. Like usually a cost of goods is about 30% or less.
Yeah, well, like the burger's double, but the plates are triple.
Right. So you have a $6 hamburger. Your cost of goods on that is probably going to be less than $2, and then you have labor and overhead and everything in there. But the actual food is a lot less than $6, right?
Yeah, but yeah, the burger's like, the burger's definitely double, no more.
No more, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you're saying your cost is more like $3.
Well, the burger's at $3.75, right?
Okay, so $3.75, so your costs are about $1.90, $2.
Yeah, around, well, a little less than that, but yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's a 100% markup. Or doing the other way, the gross margin is what? The gross margin, you take the sales minus your cost of goods sold to get your gross profit. So $4 minus $2 is 2, so you have a 50% gross margin. So you have to, it flips either way, whether you're looking at it from 2 to 4 is a 100% increase, but 2 divided by 4 is a 50% margin. So you have to be a little careful trying to figure out what way you're talking about your cost of goods. All right, so look around, collect evidence. Those of you that heard my TED lecture at the Great Ideas Conference, anybody here that heard me that day? Okay. I'm going to, for the benefit of the others, I'm going to tell the story of how I found my best investment ever. Okay. Where was I when I found it? You remember, John?
Oh, you're golfing the naked guy, right?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't golfing with a naked guy, but close enough. I was golfing at a little municipal course with my brother and sister on vacation. I walked by someone on the porch of the clubhouse having a snack and reading the newspaper. And so I walked by, I looked over the shoulder and saw the headline in the article, "Naked Man Breaks Glass at LDS Building." Oh, no, I think it was "Naked Man Tasered at LDS Building," something like that. It's close. Anyway, so, naked caught my attention, So I didn't, read the story while I was looking over the guy's shoulder, but I remembered it. And so later on that day, I got a copy of that newspaper and looked up the story and found out down in St. George, Utah, there was a guy high on drugs that had taken off all his clothes and gone to the visitor center there at the St. George Temple, broken into the visitor center when it was closed through the plate glass, entrance doors, cut his arms on the broken glass, and was found hugging the Christus statue and, bleeding all over the statue and himself. And police, called, how do you get control of this guy? They tasered him. And that's what the article is talking about, is the naked man tasered at this LDS building. A taser shoots a dart connected to a wire, and it'll fire 2 darts, and it'll run a current from the taser gun through your body, and temporarily for a few seconds just knock your central nervous system offline. It just short circuits your nerves briefly. And so that got my interest. So I flew home from my vacation and had a stack of, mail on my desk from while I was gone. And coincidentally, or I like to think of it as divine providence, there was a report there from a public relations firm that had written a report on a new company that had just sold shares to the public 3 months earlier called Taser International. And I thought, Taser, oh, that's what I read about in the newspaper on the golf course. And so I read it, and they're talking about this product, these tasers that shoot this electric current. And I read it and thought, wow, this is interesting. It was unique. I'd never heard of a taser before. I Googled and found out, who makes them. I found out they're stun guns, but a stun gun, is, let's say about this size, and you have to touch someone with it to stun them. So a taser, actually, you can, be 25 feet away from someone and still disable them. So you don't have to get close to them to use it. So that's the main difference between a stun gun and a taser. So I thought it was interesting. The price was like, it was at like, $7 a share. And they were in Scottsdale, Arizona. So I called the company and said, can I come visit you? And 2 days later, I think I was in Arizona, meeting the whole company, seeing all they do, firing a taser, seeing where they were manufactured, collecting evidence. So I collected the evidence. So I was alert to that one little weird headline, and that's what got me onto my best investment idea I've ever found. I forgot to mention this at the at my talk. My wife said, you forgot to tell them the results of all that. There's, in stocks, you have what is called common stock. That's what normally you hear about. The New York Stock Exchange, they're mainly common stocks. You have preferred stock. Sorry if I don't know if it's 1F or 2. And that's sort of halfway between debt and equity. Preferred stock usually has an interest rate that you collect on it, but you also are a preferred shareholder. So if the company gets in trouble, you get paid off first, okay? And then you have, debt. There's also things called options and warrants. And they're roughly the same thing. That is not the actual common stock, but it's an option or the right or the warrant to buy the common stock at a particular price, okay? So you had Taser common stock that traded, but you also had Taser warrants that traded. And so like this was trading at like at, $7, and this was trading at, $2, and it was the right to buy a share of common at, let's say, $7. So you looked at it and said, do I want to pay $7 for one share, or do I want to buy a warrant that gives me the right to buy a share at $7, but I've had to pay $2 for the warrant, so my total price to control the ownership of one share is $9. But you look at this and say, hold it, if I have $7, I can buy one share, or if I have $7, I can buy 3.5 warrants. So it's a way of leveraging the ownership of the shares. So people will sometimes buy the warrants because if you think it's really going to go up, you can have a lot more upside by buying the warrants for a smaller price.
Warrant
Yes.
just gives you first come, first serve, or first
What?
pay. Warrant just gives you first pay.
There's just like redeemable, that you have your warrant and you can redeem it at the company and they will give you the share.
So is it like a set thing then? So
Yes.
if I buy warrants now and they're $2 and the stock is $7, and then the stock goes up to $20, and I take in my 4 warrants and aha, give me 4 shares. Is that $7 each?
Well, no. Let's look at it. If
It's a call option, right?
basically, yeah, that's what it is. So if the common shares go to 20, and you own a warrant to buy it at 7, the warrant's going to be selling for at least 13. Okay, do you see that? So that's why the warrant goes up in price. So look at that. So the common goes from $2 to 13 because you can trade it in for one common share, okay, that's now worth 20. So look at that. What kind of percentage increase do you have on the warrant? $2 to 13, you have quintupled or more your money. Whereas the 7 to 20 is only tripled. So do you see the leverage there on an option or a warrant? Okay, they're more risky, but if you're right, they reward you a lot more. Did we finish off the questions there? Okay. So at one time, the stock actually went from, I started buying it at 7 to 8, and it went to 20, and then we had a recession. This was 2002, and the stock went to $4. So the clients were happy. 7 to 20, that almost tripled their money. And then, whoops, they're now down. What percentage loss do they have from 20 down to 4 on paper? They're down, what, 80%? Would you like to have a happy broker call you and say, you remember the stock we had at 20 a few months ago? It's now at 4. You're down 80%. Are you happy? No. No. So this was pretty tough. Okay. And the warrants, they didn't drop as much. They only dropped down to about 1.5. Okay. So I bought a few more there. Then the market turns around, taser volumes start to take off. Let me tell you what I found out, and this is the key thing. You want to find out why you should buy an investment right now. Do you know what a catalyst is? How do you? Okay, catalyst. All right, what's a catalyst?
Sets in motion of, it's like breaking a river, like breaking a dam, letting a river go,
Yeah, so it usually sets something off, starts it off, gets it going faster, makes it perform better than it would if you didn't have the catalyst there. Okay, so a catalyst is often used in chemical reactions to get the reaction going. It's like jump starting your car. You get it going. So one thing to do whenever you're starting a venture of any kind, ask yourself, what's the catalyst? Why now? Okay? Your broker calls you and says, you should buy this stock. Ask your broker, why now? Why should I buy this stock December 2nd, 2010? Why shouldn't I wait till January 2011? Or why shouldn't I wait till next summer to buy it? Tell me why I have to make the decision now and buy it today. What's going to happen? What am I going to miss out on if I don't do it now? And that's a question you want to ask yourself with all your ventures. Why do you want to start your business right when you leave college? Why that time? Why not start it, when you're 30 and you already have a nest egg and some other things? You have to analyze that, all your investments and what you're going to do. Why now? What will I miss out on if I don't get it done now? Okay? So I was saying to myself, all right, well, this is a pretty cool taser thing, but why should I buy this investment now? What's happening in the world that will make more people buy tasers really soon rather than a long time from now? And here's what I found out. Because they were different than a stun gun and you could be far away from the person you were tasering instead of up close with a stun gun, it kept deputies and police officers from getting into wrestling matches and hand-to-hand confrontation with disruptive potential arrestees. Like you can imagine how, the druggie that, was all wigged out, how it would be to get him handcuffed, flailing around, hitting you. Guess what happens? Those police officers get injured. They'll throw their back out, they'll break an arm, they'll have an injury, the guy will grab their gun while they're wrestling and shoot it. It's very hazardous to get in tight quarters with a disruptive suspect. So I called everyone I could to find out about tasers. I called retail stores, I called sporting goods stores, any place I knew that they were selling them. I called and tried to talk to the salespeople and say, hey, who's buying these tasers? You know, what do you think of them? You know, I tried to collect evidence. And I found out that the Albuquerque Sheriff's Department had bought tasers for all of their deputies. I thought, wow, that's going for it. Usually police departments would buy 5 or 10 to try them. And here you had a whole police department that had bought one for every one of their officers. And so I got one of the heads of the department on the phone and said, why'd you do this? What caused you to buy tasers for all your officers? And they told me they had reduced their workers' compensation expense in the first year enough to pay for the cost of buying a taser for every one of their officers. You know, so workers' compensation is what businesses are required to have when their employees get injured and can't work. It gives them some medical payments and covers their wages while they're off work. So when you had all these police officers during a year get injured, the police departments still have to keep paying those officers and have to pay for their hospital and medical bills. So if they could keep their officers from getting injured, they wouldn't get time off for injury and they wouldn't have to go to the hospital, et cetera. So they paid for the cost of buying tasers for everyone by just on what they'd saved in their health care and workers' compensation costs for 1 year. That just hit me. I thought, that is the catalyst. That's why every police department is going to do this. If they can reduce their expenses by using tasers, that will be the motivation for why taser sales are going to take off. So we bought a bunch of taser, and here's what happened though, the frustrating thing. It went from 20 to 4. So guess what happened when it started to go back up and got back to 20? What do you think the clients were saying? Wow, whew, we're back up to 20. Oh, we're so thankful. Oh, they were overjoyed. And they said, let's not make that same mistake again. Let's not risk it going down to 4. So we started to sell. And so between $20 and $30, we sold most everyone's taser. You know? Guess where it went in the next year? 300. And guess where the warrants that I bought at 1.5 went to?
100 something.
If it only cost $2, they also went to close to 300. So how happy would you be to buy something at 1.5 and have it go to 300? Oh, yeah, I mean, this turned out to be one of probably the best 10 stocks of all time. To go from a 1.5 to 300, that's so rare. But because we were already conditioned by having it fall off, we sold way too early. Even from 30, it still went up another 10-fold. That's called a 10-bagger in the stock business. Yeah? So we left all that on the table. Oh, so that's the outcome. So it was a great outcome, but we weren't there to see it at the top end. All right, so what's the number one point then? Be alert and collect. Yeah, and what kind of evidence? Unique evidence. You're looking for why this is special. You know, someone tells you about a great golf ball. Well, what do? You go out and buy some and try it and see if it is really that special. Okay, someone tells you about a good, sports equipment. You try it. You see, you ask your friends, hey, have you tried that? Is it doing it for you? Is it helping your game? You test it out. You collect evidence. Hey, by the way, little self-promotion here. You are looking at the BYU Hawaii 2010 racquetball intramural champion. Yeah, yeah. So, you know, craftiness and age, you know, placing the shots versus all the young guys I played here on campus, all this doing, they're hitting it as hard as they can. You know, you just got to place it. That's what wins in racquetball. All right. So number 2, determine if you would buy the whole company at this price. So someone offers you a deal. Your best friend in the ward comes up to you and says, hey, Jeff, come on, buy this company of mine. Well, you have to look at it and say, all right, you want me to buy this company at this price. Do I want the whole company at this price? If I'm Warren Buffett, would I want this company all to myself? You know? If you know how good it is, and you think, wow, this price is a steal, that really helps you make that decision to make the decision to get into the investment. You know? If someone's offering you this at $79 a share, you have to say, gosh, would I buy this whole company if I had to buy every share at $79? Is $79 really a good price for the whole company? Is that a steal? You know? If you're not that excited, if you don't feel that comfort, if you haven't collected enough evidence to get you excited to buy the whole company at $79 a share, don't do it. Okay? Let me give an example. I think we have enough time. Let me give an example of a company I've tracked for several years to show you why I collected enough evidence to like it. Okay? This is a company. Do you know what backlog is? Backlog is their orders that have come in for their product that they're going to ship in the coming year or two. So they have gotten orders in, and so backlog is how many orders are building up. So backlog is a good sign that you have something that people are ordering. So backlog going up is a good thing. Ryan, in your business, you don't have much of a backlog, right? People give you orders for things and you go out and fill the orders pretty quickly, right?
Yeah. Which business?
U.S. reports.
Yeah, usually we try to turn things around in 30 to 45 days.
Okay. All right. Other companies, you know, they'll give you an order and say, we want product shipped now for the next year and a half, you know, and they'll give you a $100 million order, but, you know, only maybe 10 million of it is for the next 2 months. Okay, so backlog, but you say, wow, but I'm going to get, you know, another 10 million a couple months from now, another 10 million a couple months from now. So you have a backlog. So you sort of see what the word means, backlog. Okay, so this company, their total backlog grew 59% in just 3 months, from 159 million at the end of June to 253 million at the end of September. Okay, so that kind of jump is pretty rare, so that got my interest. They increased their patents to 56 with 190 more pending. You ever seen on a product you buy patent pending? You've seen those words? Patent pending? Well, it takes a year or two for the patent office to issue the real patent, so you apply for it and hope you get it. So they had 190 they've applied for that they hope they actually receive, and they've had actually 56 they have actually received the patent for. Yes?
Like in that like grace period or whatever, that they're waiting, can someone else try and patent something like that?
They can, but that's why it goes by when you applied for the patent and when you started working on it. If you can prove that you were starting to work on it long before the other people, that helps you. So that's why you hurry and try to get your patent in to get first in line. Okay. They solidified their balance sheet. They increased their cash sharply. They reduced their borrowings. So cash went up, debt went down. Cash earnings were a record. Revenue was up 22% in the latest quarter. That was the third consecutive quarter of record revenue. So you're looking for a track record. You know, you're more excited to buy a company whose revenue goes like this, or would you prefer seeing a company that is gradually going up on a nice slope? Which one gives you more comfort about what they'll be like in a year? Because you're going to buy this investment and you're going to hold it from here to here. So this is like a roller coaster, and a lot of people have a weak stomach for their investments when they see them going up and down like the roller coaster. So more people like having a steady pattern that they can feel comfortable that that pattern will continue. Okay? You're trying to collect evidence to determine where it's going to go a year from now. Agreement to receive from the sale of licenses for their product. They had invested $12.6 million, or the equivalent of 32 cents a share in R&D. What is R&D again? Research and development. Okay, so they were not saying, hey, we have a good product, we never need to ever improve it. They were continuing to invest to try and make next year's products even better. Okay, so that's one thing is you have to look and say, well, okay, you have a good product today, but what are you going to do next year that will keep people buying from you? All right. An outside firm, you can get all sorts of outside consulting opinions of how your business looks, the general business model. Like there's companies that look at the video game business and they'll say the video game business is a $10 billion business and it's going to grow 20% a year for the next 5 years. So they'll give you some general business parameters and you say, would you rather be in a business that's growing 20% a year, that's projected to grow, or would you rather be in one that they say, well, depending on the economy, this business could grow between 3 or maybe in a bad year it'll actually decline 3%. You want one that's obviously growing, right? That's what you'd rather be in. The old adage is a rising tide lifts all boats. So even if you're the worst company in the industry, if the industry is really going well and the tide is pushing it, you're going to get pushed along and your business will prosper more than if the tide is going back out. What's the adage on that? Warren Buffett said, it's only when the tide goes out that you see who is swimming naked. So a lot of companies are faking it right now because, they're in a good field. Everyone thinks, oh, what a great business to be in. Well, they could be a horribly run company, but because they're in the right industry at the right time, they get pushed along by the momentum of the economy or the industry. And then when the recession comes, it's like musical chairs, the music stops, they won't have a chair to sit on because they're not the quality company that they claimed they were. All right, so number 2, determine if you would buy the whole company at this price. All right. So that's, in this company I looked at, it was trading between $2 and $3. And I thought, yeah, if I could buy this whole company for $2 or $3, I would do it. And so I did, and in the next few years, it's gone as high as $10.50 a share. So it's made a good return. All right, number 3, determine the investment's relativity or relative valuation to its peers. If you're looking at, let's use the Kahuku grill. If that's for sale, and you look at it and say, well, how is it valued compared to the other shrimp trucks, to Ted's restaurant, to the competitors in the area? How is the pricing on the sale of the grill? Is Ted's selling for $2 million and I can buy the Kahuku grill for $500,000? You think, well, let's see, could I ever be as good as Ted's? Yeah, I could. So maybe I can get my valuation up closer to where Ted's is. So that's what you're looking at is relative valuation. If someone comes up and says, hey, buy this stock for $10 a share, you have no clue whether $10 is a good price or not until you compare it to its peers. You see that? Think about it, just how intuitive that is. Someone comes and offers you garlic shrimp for $5 a plate. Well, let's see, I can go buy a Big Mac or a McDonald's value burger for $1 a share, or $1. Do I want to buy that, or do I want to spend $5 for this garlic shrimp plate? Well, okay, well, is it a good comparison to compare the shrimp plate to a cheap cheeseburger at McDonald's? No, those are apples and oranges. Those are different things. What you want to do is compare the $5 shrimp plate to what you can buy it at Romy's and Kahuku and Ted's and all the other places where they sell you garlic shrimp. And if you're going to buy the shrimp plate at Kahuku Grill for $5 a plate on a special, and if you go up, 100 feet down the road and you pay $12 for the garlic plate, you'll say, $5, $12, which one do I want to buy? They're basically the same, maybe a little bit difference in taste, but I'd rather buy the one for $5. That's a better relative value, okay? So just in and of itself, if someone says, buy this investment for this dollar price, you can't judge whether that's a good value until you check the competitors and what they're selling for. A good example of that is I had a company that made hearing aids. So I looked at that and thought, hearing aids. All of us are getting older. All the baby boomers are retiring. They want to keep their hearing quality good, so hearing aids is probably going to be a pretty good thing to be investing in the coming years as everyone gets older. So that is, that was my first inclination. And then I looked at hearing aids are an interesting quirk. Mostly the best medical care, the best medical products are from US companies. We've had a great reputation for healthcare around, but in hearing aids, the best hearing aid companies and the biggest ones are out of Europe. The US-based hearing aid manufacturers are small. The big players are out of Europe. And so they were selling at 4 times their sales. If you wanted to buy their company, they were selling at 4 times their revenues. This company I was looking at in the United States was selling at less than 1 time sales. Okay? So I thought, wow, their competitors, although a lot bigger, are selling at 4 times sales. These guys maybe have the potential to sell at least 2 or maybe 3 times sales. So that could be a double or triple in the value of their investment. So that's what got my interest, was there was a disparity in their valuation. Okay? So that's what you look for. Some things that are not right, and eventually, in the market of the world economy, things will go to equilibrium. Okay? Good one? Yeah. Buddy? Okay. All right. So you will have those differences in valuation, and that's what you're looking for. What's the adage in the stock market? You want to buy low and sell high. So you want to buy it when it's selling at 1 time sales and sell it when it gets up to selling near 4 times sales. Okay? So that's what you want to do, is determine the relative valuation to its peers. And this will come into play in your own startup companies when you look at something and you say, should I buy that from someone else and have them supply me the product, or should I make it in-house? Every one of your employees has to have a computer. You look at that and say, well, should I buy these computers from Apple or Dell, or should I try to make those computers in-house cheaper for my employees? So it's called a make or buy decision. Okay. Do your competitors up the street, I've seen this, do they actually grow the shrimp in those ponds? So they make, so to speak, their own shrimp. You don't have a shrimp farm, do you? So you have to go out and buy it from an outside supplier. Now, if you get big enough, you might say, well, maybe we should buy some land and start our own shrimp farm and make it in-house, and we're the own supplier of our own shrimp. So you look at those things you need to run your business and you say, make or buy, make or buy. And you do that by determining the relative valuation. You know, you look at it and say, well, I can buy the shrimp from what does shrimp cost wholesale for you? $5 a pound. You say, with all the hassle of farming and weather and all that, can I really make the shrimp for a lot less than $5 a pound? You have to analyze that and do the numbers, and you say, you know, I probably am a lot better off just to pay someone $5 a pound. Okay? You look at the relative valuation, and if you could grow the shrimp and your cost would be $4 a pound, you'd save $1, but you have to look and say, is that worth it? Okay, so look at that relative valuation between the products you need and whether you buy them or make them, and that same principle works on buying different investments. You know? All right, number 4, don't be afraid to be a contrarian. Can someone tell me what a contrarian is? What's the root word in there? Contrary. So a contrarian is probably someone who is contrary. All right. So it's going against the herd. As Max said the last class, you're a minion if you follow the herd and you're doing the same as everyone else. A contrarian is going against the flow, fighting to go upstream against the force of the water that's pushing them downstream, and they're trying to go upstream. Everyone else just kicks back and lets the current carry them, and a contrarian is going the opposite direction. So don't be afraid, if you have collected enough good evidence, to be a contrarian. I mean, when Taser went from 20 to 4, I looked like a fool. My clients were ticked off at me. You know, someone were ready to dump me and say, you're an idiot. But I stuck with it, and I was okay. So you better make sure you're right if you're going to be a contrarian, or else you'll get smashed by the current. You know? So the contrarians, when they're right, make a ton of money because everyone else is going the other way. You ever seen the movie Trading Places with Eddie Murray? You know, one of the themes in that was someone was trying to get the orange crop futures report ahead, and they were trying to corner the market on orange juice futures because they had some illegal information that they had bought from a source. And so that's part of the theme of the movie. And so Eddie Murray is going the opposite direction. Everyone is buy, 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 and he's sell, sell, sell. And then it switches, and he's buy, 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 and sell, sell, sell. Everyone else is that. So he's going the opposite direction of the whole market. Do I see a hand? Yes.
How long was that duration of the war?
It lasted, it wiggled its way down from about probably about a year, from 20 to 4. And then another 6 months to get back to 20. So it was enough to be painful, but not long enough that, you don't want to wait 5 years for investments to turn around, but a few months. Here's the quote. I think I had it on the board earlier in the quarter. Tell me if you know that. Sorry, quarter. I'm used to, when I was in college, we had quarters, not semesters. So, the quote is by William Wrigley, the gum guy. Wrigley's spearmint gum. Do you remember what it is? Who remembers it? In business, if two people always agree, one of them is unnecessary. Yeah. If Max and I always say the same thing, you don't need Max and I in the same business together, because he's just my clone. He's my minion. You're my minion, man.
I can challenge you to a duel to the death. Settle the rights once and for all.
So, a couple years ago, after the recession falls off, you know, real estate was in the tank, home sales had gone like this. Guess what? In 2008, just as we're starting to get our return to the world is not going to fall apart mentality, guess what one of the best investments in 2008 was? Home builder stocks. While the rest of the world was still reeling from the mortgage crisis and everything else, home builders had, their stocks had gone down here, and everyone thought they were going to keep going there, but they surprised everyone and went back up. But the average Joe on the street, he still thought they were going here, but the sharp guys that were collecting evidence, they saw, hey, it's going to turn. It's not going to be this bad. It's going to stop. It's going to change. And they went contrarian. And if you told your friends, oh, I'm buying home builder stocks, they said, you're crazy. The home market's in the tank. Well, they were contrarian and they saw it. What you want to do is see it before the rest of your competition. I had a client call me the other day and said, should we buy GM stock? What's happened to GM lately? Well, they tanked a year or two ago. What's happened to them lately? Yeah, they came out of bankruptcy. The old shares were gone. They sold new shares and in the largest initial public offering we've ever had. So it's been on the headlines of the business sections and all this. And so I had the client call me and say, oh, should we buy some GM stock? Well, when it's in the headlines of the papers and everyone and your Aunt Matilda can read it and she's calling her broker to buy GM stock, isn't it a little late? You're buying it, as they say, at the top. And where do you want to buy? You want to buy it low. You want to buy it when everyone thinks GM is going out of business. That's when you want to buy their securities. The people that bought their GM bonds when it looked like GM was going to go away have made money now that GM, those bonds are redeemable for a common stock now. So it turned out to be a good investment. But they were contrarian, they went the wrong way, they saw different evidence, and they won. Remember, I think I've made this analogy before, it's like playing Wheel of Fortune. Who wins at the Wheel of Fortune game on TV where they're trying to solve the letters, like Hangman? You remember it's the Hangman game?
It's not the one who guesses the letters, it's the one that guesses the phrase.
Well, you're trying to guess the phrase, but you win if you solve the phrase with the least amount of letters showing. That's who wins Wheel of Fortune. If you can see it and say, I know it, I'm going to solve the puzzle before your competitors have figured out what the other letters are, you win the prize money. Max?
Did anybody in here see that video with the lady who got it? It was a huge phrase and she got it with the L.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just completely flabbergasted everybody. It was the phrase.
Is it on YouTube or something?
Good feeling about this. That was the phrase. It's a long phrase, and somebody guessed L. They put the L up, and she goes, "Can I solve?" And that's just laughs and goes, "Sure." And she goes, "I've got a good feeling about this." And he just kind of looks at her, like everybody just stops. And he's like, "Well, that's right." And she's like, "I knew it." And everybody just stood there like nobody did anything.
She had an inside man.
All right. All right. Oh, I got ahead. My fifth point is look for catalysts that might move the investment price. Why should I buy this stock now? So we've already talked about that one. Number 6, don't make bad extrapolations off of too little evidence. Okay, what's an extrapolation? You have a little bit of evidence and you say, because of what I know now, I'm going to extrapolate what I know now and predict the future. That's an extrapolation, okay? So when you get a little bit of evidence, don't make bad extrapolations, especially about maybe the whole company. Let me give you an example of that. I had a friend in a ward when I lived in California. He worked for this computer company. and he was telling me his division was sucking wind. They were doing bad. You know, their products weren't selling, blah, blah, you know. He was just down on his division. So in my mind, I said, I don't need to check out that company. My friend, you know, he says they're doing bad. Well, it turned out only his division was doing bad. The rest of the company was doing great. The stock tripled in the next year, and I had extrapolated the little bit of evidence he had told me about the company and thought, oh, that represents the picture of the whole company, and I had X'd the investment and blew it because I had made a bad assumption that that little problem was company-wide. Number 7, invest in what you know or can understand. Okay? There's a guy on campus here. He's importing from Vietnam some type of furniture made out of some native fibers over there. It's not bamboo or something, but you know, it's some type of material that he knows from his time in Vietnam and bringing it over here to the United States. You know, he knows it. He's seen it. He knows that tourists buy it in Vietnam. He's saying, well, why don't I just bring it here to the citizens of the US and let them buy it here in their home country? So he's going to import it from Vietnam. So he's doing something that he knows something about. He's not going way over here and someone's whispering and say, hey, this is a good investment. Come and do this. And you say, oh, okay. And you know nothing about it. That's how you get in trouble, is if you jump into something and you have no expertise. Like, don't go home to your country and start a telemedicine clinic in your villages where you live and helping the people in your country if you know nothing about medicine. You know, if you have a dad that was a physician and you've worked in a healthcare clinic for 4 years before you came to school, and you have a brother that's a radiologist, well, then maybe you know enough so you're not going to get, as I call it, bushwhacked, you know, ambushed. You're not going to get, as they say in English, taken to the cleaners. What does that mean? What does taken to the cleaners mean in English? What does it mean? Come on, guys. All the valuable things that you had in your pants when you gave them to the cleaners are going to take them and give you back your empty pants. Okay? So that's what happens in investing when you give your money to someone and they take you to the cleaners and you get zilcho because they took your money and ran and you didn't know anything about it. It's sort of like the lady we talked about with the parking garage. She gave her boss the $3,000 just because her boss asked her to and she thought she knew him. It turned out she didn't know him and she didn't know the parking business well enough then. Luckily, she stayed with it and worked it out and made good in the parking business, but right off the bat, she was in trouble. You know, it could have been a total disaster and lost all her money. Okay? So, you know, what I see, I think it's always funny. I'll have clients that are doctors, and you know, they'll say, well, I'm gonna buy some mining company stock, or I'm gonna buy some oil and gas stock. And I say, what do you know about oil and gas? What do you know about gold mining? Oh, I read this story about, you know, how good gold is going to be over the coming years. Well, have they done their own evidence collecting? No, they're just relying on some journalist that's writing a story in a newspaper on the internet that probably is less smart than they are. And yet they're basing their investment decisions on what they read instead of doing their own evidence collecting. I tell them, I say, what is the newest drug that you've seen in your medicine practice that works? What's that new medical device that you're using on your clients to help them feel better for that back pain? You know, what's really revolutionary and special in medicine? Go invest in that. That's what you know. Invest in something that you know. All right, number 8. Buying is easy. Selling is hard. There's your evidence. It was easy to buy the warrants at 1.5 and the common at 4. I had enough evidence. I knew that buying the whole company at $4 a share wasn't going to be too bad a risk. Yeah, it may not go back up to 20 anytime soon, but probably a few years from now, it was going to be higher than 4. So I was going to make some return on my investment. Now, the hard part. So buying was easy. Knowing that, yes, this is a good buy, the hard part is, when do you sell? Look how bad a seller I was on this one. I left, when I sold at 30, I left 90% of the highest value on the table, as they say. You leave, the phrase is, you leave money on the table, like at the gambling table, you leave your money and you walk away without your money. So you're leaving money on the table is the phrase that we use in business. Okay? You have to really work hard at knowing when to sell. That is a really hard thing to do. So buying is easy, selling is hard. Be alert and collect unique evidence. Determine if you'd buy the whole company at this price. Determine its relative valuation to its peers. Number 4, don't be afraid to be a contrarian. Number 5, look for catalysts. Number 6, don't make bad extrapolations off of too little evidence. 7, invest in what you know or can understand. 8, buying is easy, selling is hard. Okay? Let me give you an example of how I applied this principle in a social venture that I was involved in, a startup about a year ago. Had a friend with an idea that he wanted, you're familiar with Consumer Reports? Consumer Reports is where you buy the Consumer Reports magazine or their book, where they have evaluated different products. Like they'll say, we bought 10 vacuum cleaners, here's the best vacuum cleaner for the price, for the best suction, you know, these things if you want in a vacuum, these are the best rated vacuums. So they're rating products. His idea was to help little entrepreneurs, business people around the world evaluate the potential for various businesses in their villages. And particularly starting off with maybe multi-level marketing products. So if a person comes to you and says, oh, you should invest in this Avon or this Tahitian noni or this, you know, any of those multi-level marketing products, how are you going to evaluate whether that's a good business to get into? And he thought of that Consumer Reports idea and say, let's rate business ideas like we rate products and evaluate them. And we'll have everyone who has tried this business upload their findings on the internet so other people can read, oh yes, in my village this product sold really well. I made a lot of money selling this product in my village. And someone over in another country could read that and say, oh, that worked over in that country, in that village. Maybe it'll work in my village. Okay, I'll sign up for this business or this product. And so that was his idea. And so that sounded, I thought, pretty interesting to help people evaluate, especially in the multi-level business. I see you were smiling when I was talking about that. Help people find out whether they're getting taken or not, whether this is a good business or whether it's a sham. Okay? Now, as I was looking at that, I was applying some of these ideas, and the main thing that came to me was the assumption that people in villages in South America or Africa or wherever he wanted to offer this service had access to the internet and knew how to upload their experience and report on what they thought of the business. You see that? What's your gut feeling? Do people in a little village in Bolivia have access to the internet and they will know to go to this website and say, this product worked really well, I've sold 20 dozen of it in the last 3 weeks? See, that was the assumption I didn't think was going to work. That yes, you could launch this product, but are people going to have access to that information in those little villages around the world? Anyone have any feel for whether his assumption is good? Would people have access to the internet in in those places?
No.
See, I didn't think so. So that's why the business sort of died. It was an intriguing idea, but when you look at the evidence and when you test some of the assumptions about the business, that's when you start to say, well, this isn't ready yet. You know, maybe this is a good business model, but it'll take 2 or 3 more years before the internet gets out to all the villages. I mean, a lot of villages don't even have electricity, let alone the internet yet. So it's not quite ready. So a good idea, but it doesn't pass the things for investing.